Hello, hello. Hope you all are doing good, business little folks. What we'll be covering today is the different overloads that are available in the email dot send method. Um, Pretty fair question. Why are you spending time into it? So, as I said, and thank you for all your comments, all your love and support to this series. There were two specific questions about this video. The first one is, are you going to show the email dot send option 3? This is one that I'm struggling with. I'm moving to your next two videos. The second one is, I want to set different from address instead of picking it from the email scenario. Is there any publisher available to achieve this? So these two questions will get answered into this video by covering all the overloads that are available for email sends options. So before we begin, if you are new to this channel or if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do subscribe to this channel. Based on our analysis of the channel, we found out that only 16% of people who watches all these videos are only have subscribed to this channel. Rest of the people haven't subscribed yet. For you, it's just a click of a button. For us, it gives us an idea of what we are doing, how we are doing, do we need to change something. So enjoy the video, but if you haven't, please do subscribe to the channel. Okay, so without wasting further time, let's come back and do a small quick understanding of the setups and all. The email accounts, as we have done in the past, are already set up. 3 email accounts are set up. My personal one, a purchase scenario based, a sales scenario based. But today's, we are not going to use these scenarios to pick the sender email address. We are doing something else. And because I'll not be using my personal email account, what we'll be seeing is how emails come into the outbox. When they are not sent, they'll be generated and sit into outbox. So we'll be able to analyze our results using the email outbox. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so now let's start it. Um, the source code is available on GitHub. The link of the GitHub will be available in the pinned comment to this video. So you can go ahead and grab the code anytime. Okay. So let's try creating a new page and for this demo. So that we can see, I don't want to touch the rest of the code that we have already done. So I'll just create a page and I'll call it as SDH email send overloads. Okay. Okay, let's do finish. We don't want to attach it to a table, but I surely would like to define the users category to be, let's say, administration. Okay. So we are going to, quickly, we are going to understand what we are going to cover first before we do that. So if you remember, when you went into sending custom emails, in the first video we talked about that there are two ways to send it. One by using temp email item, which is pretty limited what you can do and what you cannot, but works for most of the cases. Microsoft still uses the temp email item logic in most of the areas. And then the second one is using the email message and email code units, where you can create an email. If you have to open it in an editor, you can use this. If you have to send it behind the scene, then you'll use something like this. And this is what we are going to discuss. So if you are not interested, I'll see you in the next video. If you're interested, we are going to cover just what are the different style of sends are there. So what I'll do to save time, I'll just copy these two variables from here and paste them into my page. And then just to record what kind of send options we have, I'll create an empty procedure and we'll try to see what are the different overloads available. So let's do an email.send, and the first overload that I see is just a send. Pretty simple one, straightforward. Just pass it the email message that you have created and it'll send it. Let's see what the second one. The second one is where it needs where you can define a scenario to set your sender address, sender email address. Now let's see the third one. That is one of the question. how you utilize the third one, which is this one. So let's place this in here. And then the last but not least, let's see what is the last one. So the last one is this one, which is using the email connector, and which is a pretty interesting one. So we'll see that. Okay. So these are the 4 different style of send that we'll be using in today's video. And just to make it simple for you guys to test it and change the code based on your scenario, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 4 labels for these different send options that I've said. The send label 1 talks about send with email message, the second one with the email scenario, the third one with email account ID, and the fourth one with email message, account ID, and email connector. I'll just place them into the page. Everybody knows how to add fields into the page, so I'm not going to explain this. And hopefully my Copilot will support me. Hopefully, it should. But let's have a look. Okay. 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 It understood the pattern. Now for all these labels that I've added, I don't want them to be editable, so let's just set editable to be false, and I also don't want to see their captions, otherwise there's a caption and a value, so I'll set the show caption also as false. So let's me copy paste that in all of these different labels. That's done. Now I'll need 2 methods if I'm not wrong. The first one would be for it. Let's do a trigger. The trigger will be on, let's say, drill down. And in each of these scenario, I would like to call a function, which is, let's say, generate email message. Okay. And then the next one is send email message. Okay. But because this will be repeated on all the cases, what I'll do is I'll start giving it numbers so that it's easier to utilize that info going forward. Okay. Here I'll change these to 2. No rocket science. I hope you all understand that. If you don't, let me know. And for the third one, I just change it to 3. And for the fourth one, I just change it to 4. Easy, right? Okay. Now let's create this method called generate email message. Okay, let me place it up here for my easy understanding. I don't like the word arg into it, so what I'll do is I'll say email type. All right. In the same way, we need this method, so I'll just utilize this which we have created and have the same thing here. Okay, easy peasy, everything looks good. Now we just need to define these methods and then test this out. So let's close the layout and let's start defining these methods. So easy one would be to define a case. Okay. And you define the case with the word of. Sorry. We have 4 scenarios of that we'll get. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And for the first one, which is pretty straightforward, we'll do a email message dot create. I'll use my email ID. Okay. The second one becomes the subject. So the subject is, let's say, test email. Okay, and then the last one is body, which is this is a test email from Central. Okay, let me copy this as it is because I'm not worried about what kind of email message is going. This is just to understanding how different send options work. But just for our clarity's sake, so that we understand it, because we'll be referring it into an outbox, I'll just add these unique identifier to each of these emails so that we can differentiate which one is coming and which one is not. Hopefully that brings some clarity. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to replicate the same case statement here. And the first one would be pretty simple, as we know. The first one will just say email.send, right? Which is this one. So we'll say email dot send, and that will be the email message. So we have done this one, and we have used it in past, so nothing to test or worry about it. The second one talks about email dot send with your email message and a email scenario. That's what this is. So let's define that. Nm email scenario, and the email scenario is, let's say, let me see what is the default scenario. Just all right. So default is sales. So the first one will send via default. Let's pick the purchase scenario. Okay, because I'm sure I have assigned it to this. Purchase orders. Hopefully I have assigned it to it, but let me just check. Email scenarios, purchase order, and purchase code. Okay, so I did assign that. So the second one will use the purchaser email ID. Now let's say on the third one, I want to use the purchaser email ID also, but not by using the scenario. And now we are talking about this one. It says send the email with the email message as usual, but then also give an email account which is this type. So let's define this first. Okay. Nice. And because it's temp, it's good to say temp. Okay. So if I'm understanding it correctly, it should be as simple as temp email account. I can't get it. Let's do a set range on a field. Let's say name, and the name that I'm looking for on my temp email account is, let's say, purchase demo. This is my account name. So let me copy that and paste it here. Okay. If my temp email account is find first, something like that, then send it with my temp email account. That's what we want, right? All these send options, just remember, returns you a boolean, so you can do your checks and balances. I'm just showing you from a demo perspective. So we are good here. Let's just run this, or maybe, oh sorry, let's also define this, the fourth one. My bad, I forgot. Okay, on the fourth one, it should be more or less same. The only difference here is that the email message we have defined, it needs a keyword. So we need to give it an account keyword. Okay. And then the last, we need to give it a enum of email connector. We'll understand if we can how this is used for. But these are the 4 different scenarios that are available. Why it is expecting an on enum value? Oh, maybe I'll have to define that. Okay, let me go back. Let me define this as this, and then let's utilize this. Okay. So hopefully if everything we have done sounds or looks good, we should be able to test out our email sending based on these 4 different overloads that are available, right? So as I was saying, all these send method return you a boolean. If the email is sent, you get a true. If email is not sent, based on different reasoning, like in this case my sender email addresses are wrong, it'll give you a false, so that you can trace did your email actually went out or not, right? So this is our page that we have built, and now we'll test the first one. Seems it's done. Let's check into the outbox, or maybe let me open it on the separate tab so that we can keep checking that. Okay, outbox. Now we have an email which is called test email 1. That means our first scenario succeeded, and it is picking from the sales, which we knew will succeed. Let's do the second one. Okay, it should not take that long, hopefully. Let's come here and let's reopen the page, and we'll notice that there is a second one, but this time notice it came from the purchaser email address. because I use the scenario for purchase, which we all have discussed in the past. Let's go to the third one, which is with email message and email account ID. And let's see. Let's refresh this, but we don't see an email. Now let's take a pause and let's try to understand what actually happened. This is not interesting. Let's come here. The case one is simple, the case two is simple. What we are doing is we are saying set a range on name. But what we have also done is we have defined this based on the requirement of the send to be a temporary. So it is not actually looking at the actual table, it is referring to a temp entity of that table. But because it's needing that temp, there will be some way. So let's go back to Business Central, go to email account, do an inspection of this page. Okay, help and support, inspect, and this will show me all the fields as we did copy the purchase demo and test it out. One thing to notice here, that even this page also have a source table which is also set as temporary. So somehow Microsoft is also pulling that data from somewhere and showing it to us in this page where this is not the actual data and is a temporary data. How we will find that? Let's go into this page, the system application. Let's search for that, which is the page. And in the page, if it is set to source table as temporary, somewhere, not in the layout for sure, not in the actions, but somewhere in the open page, there will be some code which is trying to fetch these values and show it to users. So if you notice here, there is this, there is this, then there is this, and then there is this update email account. Hopefully this is the method because that's the only method that I can see. So let's navigate there. And this method seems to refresh the email accounts, refresh the default email account, and update as in not update true as, but shows you those values. So if I can call this method from my code unit, I should be able to fetch that out. But if you look at it, this method is first set to local, and anything that it is calculating will be stored in the reference of this page, not in terms of your variable. So let's try reading this. Okay, it said something, and then there is a method called get all accounts. Okay, that sounds interesting. And here, if you read the description, it says get all the email account registered in Business Central. Okay, and you can do it with the load logs, which tells you do you need to load the logs of that account, and the temp email account is a out parameter because it is passed as reference, and let's set all the accounts into this variable and return it to you. Okay, surprise, surprise. When I was going through this, I also noticed that there is a temp email account, okay, which is also an email account, and it does not need the other parameter. So there are overloads of get all accounts also, okay, and you can use either of those. I'll just keep it simple and utilize how Microsoft is doing it. So I'll just copy this and paste it at the beginning of my code. And then I'll also need the reference to this code unit. So let's copy this and let me define it here. Not scenario, my bad. Okay, email accounts. So let me just paste it here. Okay, there's an error that it will return it into reg. There's no reg because this is not page, so I'll need to pass this to this. Hopefully that works. And the next one is also on the similar line, so I'll just paste that line here. So let's publish this and see what happens to our option 3 once it gets published. But remember one thing, what we learned here is if you are trying to pick up a different sender based on all the email accounts that you have defined in your Business Central, you will have to call this method to get all the accounts before you do any set ranges or gets or anything of that matter. Okay, so what we have seen here, and let me go back, we already have a scenario for 1 and 2. So if I click on this one now, based on my code that I've written, if everything goes well, I should see a test email 3 here, and yeah, we are able to see that. And this picked the purchase demo account because in my code here, I have set it to purchase demo. And you should not be doing this. I'm just giving you an idea how you do it. Okay. For sure, this is not the right way of doing it. I'm just trying to explain you how it works. Don't do it like this ever. Okay. Okay. Now let's test out our last scenario, which is the fourth one. Okay. Let's click on it and we get an error message, which is the provided email account does not exist. Now let's understand it a little bit. This particular send is taking email message, great. Taking the account ID, which is part of the primary key of this particular record with the connector. And there is an email connector here. So if I can, and I'm just making this assumption here, if I pass this connector from temp email item, it should be able to do it. And before I do that, let me explain you why I'm saying this. That maybe. Because a typical enum that most of us have used give you a list of options that you can choose from or assign from, like scenarios, like document types, release types and all. But this enum is not a direct enum. It is actually an enum that is used to implement an interface. Now that's a completely separate discussion altogether. Based on some setup, it implements this interface and then also this interface, right? This interface allows you to send these different emails that we have seen till now, and there are other methods available. That's a completely different discussion. I'm not going there. But in your email account page or table, you also have a connector built in. So if I would like to, and I should be, using the temp email item dot connector, because that's also part of the primary key. If everything goes good, and let me change it to sales demo. Let's play with that value. Let's see, email account, this is sales demo. So, okay, let me change it to sales demo and let me publish this and see what happens. The connector in this case is utilized to pick which of the implementation of that code is called. And there are different implementation. I don't know, have you read about interfaces or not? But the idea of interfaces is that you can have multiple ways to achieve the same thing. With Business Central, when you look at these different accounts, there are characters defined, which allows you to kind of send that way. Okay, not for this video. That discussion is not for today's video. So we have test 3. Let's try to send out the fourth one. Once we do that, it actually ran the same code, what we had there. And if everything goes well, I should be able to see an email from the sales demo, not from the purchase demo this time, because in my code, I did a set range with my sales demo account. So by utilizing this object, and this will be available in GitHub in next hour or so, you will be able to utilize different send options, which shortly, if I understand it correctly, based on my understanding of the question, will answer this question and also this question. Before I let you go, just do a quick recap of what we have learned. There are 4 different kind of overloads available for email.send message method. The first one is pretty simple, where you just pass the email message and it sends it. The second one allows you to define the email message and then choose the scenario that you want to use as a sender address. The third one allows you to choose the email account directly, no reference to the scenario, to send an email. But for that, you need to load all the email account into a temp record using get all account method. And last but not least is where you define the email connector, which is also part of your temp email account table or entity. Now, if you remember all of those, I hope this video will help you in achieving what you're doing with those scenarios. As I said, this is just for the demo. You don't need to take the code as it is and replicate in your business solution. Be a little bit creative. Now you know how to use it, and I'm pretty sure you are smarter than me to use it in the right way. You know the drill. Like the video if you like it, share the video if you think others will get some benefit out of it, and do subscribe to this channel if you haven't. And please, please, please keep adding comments. That is the only reason why there are videos, because you guys are commenting. If you stop commenting, I don't know what I'll be recording going forward. So have a good day, good evening, good night whenever you're watching it, and I'll meet you again sooner than later with the next video in this. Maybe not in this series, but in some of the series. Okay? Have a great day.